Okay.
I know I received a couple questions that I can also ask.
Sure.
And then if you guys have questions, you can also add this question on the chat, so that way I can also get them and ask. All right. First question: How do you determine how long is going to take for your lead time versus circle time?
So, okay, if I understand the question, are you asking the difference between lead time and cycle time? Is that so?
The next question then asks, what is the difference between lead time versus circle time?
Okay, so suppose this is my done, and this is where my whole work happens. This is my backlog, right? So even before considering the cards to be played or brought into backlog, you do some work, right? I come and so pizza, okay, pizza guy.
It's like you love
a,
pizza so much.
Yes, I do. I mean, it's something that I feel everyone can relate to. The easiest one as well. So when a customer walks into your store, right, and orders the pizza first, right, that is when your lead time starts, right? The order given by the customer, right? Because you have just received the order. You have not started the actual work, right? So you have just received the order here. The order has come in here for some XYZ pizza. That is when your lead starts. Okay. And the moment actual work starts, so preparing the dough, preparing the base, top them, bake them, and then pack them, right? You have all these things. So when all these things happen, so all this happens between your start and finish, right? So once all this work flows from start to finish, when this starts is when your cycle time starts. Okay. And when this ends, which is when it comes to you're done, is when your cycle time ends, right? So suppose it is 8:30 a.m. here, my time, right? So my order was given at 8:30 a.m., right? But my actual work might have begun at somewhere around maybe like 8:35 a.m. Okay. I might have spent like 20 minutes or maybe 15 minutes. So that would end my cycle time at 8:50 a.m., right? Which means my cycle time was of 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, my pizza got baked and cooked and everything and packed. And then I give it back to my customer at 9 a.m. For example, I'm saying 9 a.m. right? So my lead time is of 30 minutes while my cycle time was only 15 minutes. Does this help differentiate?
Can you please take that again one more time, Vikram?
Sure. So your customer has placed the order. That is when your lead time begins. So your customer has started it at 8:30 a.m. Okay. But you actually started working on creating the pizza at 8:35 a.m. Okay, which means there was still a delay of 5 minutes. There could be some reason over there. So you started at 8:35 a.m. and then you made it at 8:50 a.m. So So 35 a.m., you spend 15 minutes of time and you are delivering at 8:50 a.m. Okay. So the moment your work on the pizza is completed, that is when your cycle time is generated. So your cycle time was of 15 minutes there. And from there, by the time it comes back to your customer, right, when it's delivered back to your customer, it is 9 a.m., which means that is when your lead time gets closed. So your lead time, since the order was placed till the order was actually delivered to the customer, was 30 minutes, but the amount of time that the team took to work on producing that order was 15 minutes. So 15 minutes was my cycle time and 30 minutes was the entire lead time.
I think that explanation is very clear.
Thank you, Muki.
Yeah.
All right, next question says, what is the difference between WIP limit versus batch sizes?
WIP limit versus batch sizes. So batch size
Sorry
will
to cut you,
be,
Vic. I can't hear the question very well. Can you repeat it, please?
What is the difference between WIP limit versus batch sizes?
Okay, thank you.
so WIP limit is to limit the amount of work that you can actually take. Okay. Batch size could actually be the kind of batch, the work that you're taking before you start working on it. So so for example, I am coming with a requirement of developing a calculator application, and I say I have like 100 requirements, 100 things I want to be delivered, right? So if I'm taking all the 100 in one go, so that is my batch size, the amount of work that I'm taking. But I have restrictions, I have limitations. I do not have the capacity to deal with the entire 100 batch. So what I do is I'll reduce this batch here. Okay. And I can reduce this batch based on the WIP limits that I have here, and also based on the capacity that I have. Sorry, CAP. Based on the capacity that I have. So batch size is about the entire load of work that you are going to take, and WIP limits is something that will help you focus on what do I pick from that batch really. Does it help? I mean, whoever has asked the question.
Can you clarify the WIP limits, please?
Okay, so so let me go.
Can I take
back.
a stab at this, Vikram, while you're doing that?
No, go ahead.
So basically, I think it's an idea of not taking more than you can handle at a time and not overwhelming the team. So it's basically having a work in progress that you can deal with at the time, opposed to the number of work that you actually need to do over a period of time.
Yeah. So and that was very well put, and that is why I say I have a WIP limit of 4. So suppose I don't have any WIP limit, right? The analysis team can pull as much work they want, and this is like the normal human tendency, right? We think we can always do more. We always have that mindset that we can do more, but when you are on the ground, it really becomes difficult for you to shuffle, right? I might feel that I can work on multiple projects in one go, but when I'm doing that, I really understand that I'm not capable of handling more than 3 projects or more than 2 projects, right? And this also so you are basically limiting the amount of work you are taking within your lane, within your workflow. So sometimes so far we have seen that people limits are being only applied to the columns, but there are situations where they apply for the entire board as well, right? So that there are organizations, teams that do this. So they say, on my board, I don't want to see more than 11 cards. So 11 will be my WIP limit for the entire board, which means at that point of time, anyone like development team can take like this, and analysis will be like this. So the combination changes, right? So work in progress limits are something that you use to help create more focus, and help you from multitasking as well, and helps you pull the right valued item. You want to create a flow that delivers value to you. So work in progress limits help you do that. There are multiple ways where the teams can actually come to a conclusion on what should be the work in progress limit. There are multiple ways to do that. Again, that can be a very long session as well, and in its own. But one quick and easier way is to go with the experience, right? If you have someone who has already seen this happening, that person would be the right one to consult. And one basic thumb rule we say is, if you do not have clarity on what WIP limit need to be set, then start with 1 and then improve. Start with low, then go to high. Don't go with high, because once you go with high, you have already taken so much of uncertainty into consideration that it becomes difficult to manage. So it's like, salt, right? If you're having salt in your food, the right kind of right amount of salt is enough to bring that taste in. If you add more, it becomes difficult to remove, but if you add less, it gives you an opportunity to add more. So that is WIP limits.
Okay. Vikram, so pretty much you're saying it helps control oversaturation of the board.
Yes, not just board, even your actual work, right? It helps you focus on the right kind of work that needs to be done, right? So if a customer is saying, I want to, again, coming back to the calculator application, if the customer says, I want to see the wireframe first, or the working interface first, how would my interface look like? It makes more sense for me and my team to deliver that first, rather than start building something else and show him what they are not asking for. So yes, it does both. It helps you from oversaturating, and it helps you create focus.
All right, thank you for that. Someone asked this question, and I think you probably already went through it, but it says, what is the average lead time from an idea being added to the product backlog to its delivery?
That is very context specific. I mean, the kind of work you are doing. So I gave an example of pizza. So I was able to deliver within 30 minutes. So that was my lead time. But if you are in an actual manufacturing plant, manufacturing something, or if you're developing a software, it completely depends on what is its complexity, what level of detailing is needed, and what kind of technology gets added to it. So it's completely context specific. Nobody can answer that question to you, to the dot.
Okay. And the next question says, what is the difference between throughput versus velocity? And I think we kind of already discussed that.
Yes, we did.
All right.
Their correlation. That's it. I mean, it's different. I mean, you can think that it is something velocity is something similar to throughput, but when it comes to the actual usage of it, it is very different.
Okay. Does Kanban use velocity and capacity?
If you're using Kanban and Scrum together, and then yes, you can.
Okay. And next question says, what are the events in Kanban?
There are no events in Kanban. Whatever the Kanban team members feel they need. So if they think that they want to connect like a daily Scrum, if they want to connect on a day-to-day basis, they can decide on the time, the length of the time, and what the frequency could be. So it's totally up to the Kanban team members to decide upon.
Okay,
What
does
kind
the
of
team
event?
also determine the cadence or the iteration?
Yes. So again, like I'm talking only about Kanban, right? So Kanban doesn't talk about any role, any events, no artifacts, nothing. It talks about what you have currently, what kind of value you are going to deliver. And if you think of those 3 practices and the 4 measures that you're doing Kanban. You want to set a cadence, you want to set a meeting, you want to name it whatever you want. If you want to have a role, then you can have multiple roles. You can have a flow, rather than Scrum Master, have a flow master. So someone who is helping you with designing and defining the flow and walk you through it.
Okay. And the next question said, can you explain cumulative flow diagram?
Cumulative flow diagram. I need to have an example. Let's see. Let me pull out something. Okay. Yeah. So cumulative flow diagram. It will. Is this visible?
I don't think we see anything right now.
Oh, my bad. Okay, sorry. Just a moment. Let me share this. Yeah. How about now? Is this good?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so cumulative flow diagram looks something like this, and every color that you see is a column on the Kanban board or on the sprint board. So you can actually look at this even in the Jira tool. You will find cumulative flow diagram. This gives you the entire information of how the work started. So for example, if the work started here, right, and it flew through, and then it went to done here, ready to delivery was here, and then if you see the definition, okay, I need to take out the color. Maybe black would do. Yeah. Okay. So this is where your work started. Okay. That's the up. All these small dots that you see, right? The changes that have happened is where the work has begun, and then here is where the work has ended. So for this particular task, the work began here. It ended here, right? So its cycle time was 7 days. So average cumulative flow diagram gives you cycle time and throughput in the same page. So if you see 10 tasks are in progress, right? This is your work in progress. But then once this ends, this will be your throughput. So this is so basically how your flow has been across multiple days. So people can look it for a sprint, multiple sprints, quarter-wise data. They can get to this, and this helps them identify cycle time and work in progress and throughput very easily. This is what a cumulative flow diagram does. And if you see here, they have multiple columns, right? More the columns, more the complex cumulative flow becomes. So that's why we say try to have only minimal amount of column that helps you helps the flow of value move through on the board.
Okay. Next question, I think, then one more. Next question is, can you define what pull versus push means?
Oh, yes. So, okay, I have here. Right. Okay. So suppose I don't have any WIP limits. Okay. I don't have a WIP limit. So what do you think will happen at analysis phase? Do you think they will uh, be done? Oh, so there's just two people here working. Two people working here, three people working here, one here and one here. So do you think these two people will only limit themselves to the work that they can take? And also, will they be thoughtful or mindful of how many people are there in development? Which means I'm taking cards, right? Or then you have your, suppose you have some project manager or your lead, your team lead or someone who is sitting here monitoring all these things. Okay. They will keep on pushing the work to do. They say, this is high priority, take this. They are pushing it onto you, right? Not being mindful of the capacity of the team or who is working on what, right? Now, analysis team, okay, suppose they're finishing things up and they're just pushing everything onto you next, right here. Do you think these three people over here are able to work on this? So what I'm saying is push system develops this oversaturation kind of thing, right? And this is what will happen in push. You're simply pushing things onto the next, or I just want to see a clean backlog. I don't want anything here, so I'm pushing everything onto the teams, not being mindful of if they are able to work, if they're able to even finish it, or if there is any blockers, any dependencies, right? So this is a push kind of thing. We're just pushing things on your teams, on your co-workers. But what pull tells is we are not going to take or analysis will tell to PMTLs or your POs or PDMs, product managers, product owners, or anyone. They'll tell them, what, we want certain criteria, and this is our WIP limit of 4. We can only take 4 at a time and work on 4 stories, which means it includes the entire to do and done, right? And you keep a lane here which says ready. So I move the backlog here. Okay, the backlog is moved here, and I say ready here. Okay, so we will pull the work when it is in ready mode. Okay, that's what analysis team will tell them, which means it allows the product owners, product managers to refine their work in such a way that the analysis team is ready to pull it, right? And analysis team can only pull till 4 on the whole lane, right? So which means now they have capacity to pull one more, so they can pull. This is the pull system. And similarly, developmental team will tell to analysis team that we will not pull anything that is not done, because there's nothing, we don't have anything to pull, so we will continue working on what we have. And they might say we have a WIP limit of 3, right? So this is what WIP limit will also do, is they'll stop you from pulling extra work, right? So suppose there are 2 things here in done, but my team is already on 3. Do you think they will be able to pull from here to here? They cannot. Your system itself won't allow. If I'm in Jira, for example, and if I've set a WIP limit of 3, Jira will never allow you to pull. So, which means I have to, the testing team needs to pull, but testing team is at a WIP limit of 1. They cannot pull, right? So this gives an opportunity for the entire team to look at how they're actually working, how their capacity is being planned, right? What kind of work is being taken, right? So, and then eventually, once you define and visualize your workflow, you create your explicit policies, you start working on them, then you might have questions later point of time that, should we increase this by 2? Should we increase this by 3? Add more people here because we just had 1, something like this. So this is your pull system. You will only pull. So now testing has more capacity, so they can pull. The WIP limit is also increased, right? Sign off is moving here, and then sign off can pull the work. So sign off can also tell testing people that, I don't know when your story is done, so I want a done here. So whenever you are moving to done, so your card is moving here, we can pull it here. I don't need a done in sign off because sign off can then, they can push it to done. So that's okay. So push over here is fine. But then they need to have some explicit policies that when can they push, kind of a thing. So that becomes again a larger scope of training or session. But does this help answer between the difference between push and pull?
Sure. And the last question is, do you estimate in stories or hours in Kanban, or how do you do estimation in Kanban?
So Kanban doesn't have any such specification. So you can estimate in hours if you feel comfortable. If the team feels comfortable, if they want to estimate in hours, they can do. If they want to estimate in days, they can do. But if they want to make it complicated, they can use story points. So it's up to the team, but Kanban doesn't have any say in it. But if you're using Scrum and if you're using Kanban to support Scrum, then yes, you will be using story points there. But if you are only working in Kanban as a model, they have no say that it has to be story points or it has to be hours.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is Kanban does not have any such specification or rule that says you have to estimate in story points or in hours. There is no concept as story points in Kanban. So that's what I'm trying to tell. You can estimate in hours, you can estimate in days in Kanban.
Does anyone have any other question? Oh, someone wanted to say something?
Yeah, Victoria, I just wanted to add to what he was saying, right? So one other thing about estimation, again, it all depends on your organization and the focus metrics, right? A lot of time, if you in a Scrum team, you always using story point because at the end of the sprint, you want to calculate the number of story points that was completed. So he is giving like a couple of metrics that you focus on when it comes to Kanban, for example. So it all depends on the organization and what exactly their focus areas are. So if they're trying to calculate throughput or cycle time, that might be the metrics they present at the end of a certain period of time. Like throughput said, most of the calculation is how much work is completed within a certain period. It might be days, weeks, or months. So it all depends. So I think that will help in regards to knowing that story point might not be needed, but that doesn't really mean each of the work items doesn't have like a certain measurement that is being given to each of those stories that are being worked on on a Kanban board. So if that helps as well.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions? No question? All righty, I think that kind of joins today's meeting. Today actually was quite long, but
Yes.
just want to say thank you